Hello everybody and welcome back to another Oscar prediction video where today I will be taking a look at the category of Best Cinematography. Now first and foremost I would like to apologize for not having a video out yesterday. I'm going to try to make up for this by having two today. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull that off, but I'm going to try to record two at once. So let's see how we do. Cinematography, like many of the tech categories, seems to be going to one very specific movie, and you don't need to guess very hard to figure out what that is. It is crazy as we look at it. It's been very, very long since one movie swept the tech categories and Best Picture, but it seems like we're potentially, I don't want to say moving towards uncharted territory, but certainly uncharted territory for the preferential ballot era, because this used to happen in the 90s and before that all the time. But I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's just look at Best Cinematography for now. Fifth most likely to win is El Conde. So the cinematographer of this film is Edward Lachman. This is his third nomination. He was previously up for Far From Heaven and Carol. And the visual style of this film is very interesting. Obviously, it's in black and white, and I feel like there's a rule of the Academy that they have to try to nominate at least one black and white movie every year. Interestingly, all 5 of these cinematography nominees this year have some element of black and white in them. And this is the only one that is 100% black and white all the way through. So, while I don't know if I can specifically speak to the visual style of the film, having not yet seen it, it really does seem like not a lot of people were super enthusiastic about the film as a whole, which is strange because it's coming from Pablo Larraín, coming off of Jackie and Spencer, and yet people were not too thrilled by what the film is about and taking this real politician and making this comedy about him being a vampire. So it seems like the film kind of came and went on Netflix without a lot of fanfare, but evidently the cinematography branch remembered it and wanted to vote for it. And I don't want to speak too much on the quality of the work, however, there is an expectation that, oh, you're just voting for this because it's the black and white movie, and something like Saltburn, a movie that I did not particularly like, but I think would have made a worthy cinematography nominee, like that's another option. There were a few other options that we were thinking about, like Zone of Interest maybe getting in. And this, I think this can be considered a surprise nomination. And even among the people who predict it, I can't imagine anyone predicting it to win. It is the only film in this lineup that is not up for Best Picture. This is the one nomination that it has. And I don't know how many people have seen the movie. And of those who have, I don't know how many people really like it, especially enough to vote over these nominees. So, interesting nomination, maybe somewhat of a cliche nomination, not going to win. Fourth most likely to win is Poor Things. Now, this might seem like interesting placement because Poor Things is a Best Picture nominee, it is a visual feast, and the cinematography is certainly very, very showy. But there is a question of, is it too showy? And normally you can never be too showy in an Oscar tech category, but this might be the exception that proves the rule. The cinematography is done by Robbie Ryan, who was previously nominated for The Favorite, also directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. And in that film, there was some experimentation with wide-angle lenses and fisheye lenses, and this movie really does take it up to another level. And there is certainly an argument to be made that the cinematography is more distracting than everything else. And I get the point of it is to create this surreal experience because Bella is seeing the world for the first time and everything's very heightened and exaggerated. But I feel like you get that just from the production design, and we didn't necessarily need the cinematography being this weird and loud and in your face. So, even though it is very showy, and even though the nomination does make sense, I feel like not a lot of people are going to go for it. Some might feel like it's just simply too much, and it hasn't picked up a ton of precursors, so I don't know. I don't think there's ever been a winner in the category quite like this. People like cinematography that's showy, but they like beautiful landscapes, and they like impressive long takes. I think this is just It's not very impressive because anyone can use a fisheye lens, and I think there's this question of why is this necessary? Uh, if I know that some people like this, good for them, but I don't particularly think it's useful cinematography, and I don't think it's going to win. Third most likely to win is Maestro. So the cinematographer is Matthew Libatique, and this is his third nomination. He was previously up for Black Swan and A Star is Born. And I will say, this is impressive work. It looks, as someone who was not a huge fan of the movie, I do think the work is very interesting to look at. Obviously, there's some black and white and some color, like in Poor Things, but the cinematographer really knows how to create some memorable images and how, and again, like, great use of long takes. There is that one, a great scene of Bradley Cooper conducting that the cinematography does call attention to itself, but in a less obnoxious way than Poor Things. And so there are going to be some people who want to vote for this. The problem is the movie is clearly waning in popularity. There's a lot of people that just really don't like this film and think it's a little overly pretentious. And even though Bradley Cooper is certainly doing impressive things as a director, and the way that he blocks out these shots with Libatique is impressive, I don't know. I think if the movie were more well-liked and Cooper were more in the conversation to win actor, then maybe. But as it stands right now, I don't necessarily think that it's going to happen. I think the movie is well-liked-ish, but I think the top two in this category are a little bit more well-liked. Second most likely to win is Rodrigo Prieto for Killers of the Flower Moon. So this is Rodrigo's fourth nomination. He was previously up for Brokeback Mountain, Silence, and The Irishman. So a very well-respected cinematographer indeed. And he has never won. None of these nominees have ever won, but he has maybe the most backing. He's also worked with Scorsese a lot, and interestingly, he also shot Barbie earlier this year. And there were definitely some critics groups that nominated Prieto for both films, and some that gave him like a joint cinematography prize for both movies. And in a weird way, I do wonder if the Barbie mention could help Prieto get a little bit more credit, because obviously those two films look very, very different from each other, and it just goes to show the range that Prieto has as a DP. However, I do question if he can win, just because number one in this category is very locked, but I would make the argument that he is the runner-up. I think he's won the second most precursors prior to this, and the work is very impressive. There's some really, really strong work, and there is some debate about what can Killers of the Flower Moon win. Maybe it can win actress, but if it doesn't win that, this might be a decent thing for it to win on the night. But I've learned to not question the whole... One of the things I'm really trying to do this year is not fall into the trap of this movie has so many nominations it has to win something. Because last year we had Banshees and Elvis and Fabelmans and a lot of movies that had a bunch of nominations and went home empty-handed. So the Academy is not a hive mind. It does happen. And I think Killers, if it does win, is more likely to win in lead actress, but more on that category another day. And the work here is strong, it is striking, and it has the least amount of black and white, with it only being used for like photos at the beginning of the film. But I do think it's number two, but I don't think it's winning. Number one most likely to win is Oppenheimer. So this film was shot by Hoyt van Hoytema. This is his second nomination, coming off of Dunkirk. So obviously this is a very, very good-looking movie, and like the others, it utilizes black and white. However, it was a big deal that this movie was shot using IMAX cameras, and that they actually had to develop new techniques in order to shoot IMAX black and white. That had never been done prior to this movie. And so that gives it a little bit of a leg up, because it helps with the narrative of the film. And initially, I was a little bit hesitant to think it could win based on that alone. Coming off of last year, there was this expectation that Top Gun Maverick was going to win, because they also did some really innovative stuff with the camera in that film. but ultimately that didn't end up getting the nomination. But I do think Oppenheimer is in a better position than Top Gun was, partially because it looks really good. Also, because the black and white cinematography is stuff the Academy eats up, as given by all the other nominees. But even beyond that, the movie is this big tech sweeper. Even, I think at this point, it's pretty likely that it's going to win picture, and it's also pretty likely that it's going to take a bunch of the below-the-line tech categories. So it's sort of become this unstoppable force at this point. And if it's taking all these other wins, it's probably going to take cinematography too. As much as it might be nice to think about the Academy spreading the wealth and giving it to a different film, I just don't know if the branch is going to go in that direction. And the fact that the film looks very nice and they're able to achieve some really impressive stuff with the cinematography, yeah, I do think this should be Oppenheimer's to lose. It would be cool to see Killers win, just to see Prieto get that recognition, but I do think this is going to be a pretty easy win for Oppenheimer. So thank you very much for watching, and tune in next time when I will be taking a look at the category of Best Makeup and Hairstyling. See you then.